So I woke up this morning, I noticed nobody was making an art video for YouTube, so I thought I'd step up. I'm stepping up, I'll carry the load. So one of the trends I've noticed, and I don't think it's a good thing, but there's a lot of negativity in the art community. I've noticed a lot of people suffering with anxiety about being replaced, about new generation of artists, about AI, about all this just negativity, just stuff like, and then you're also bombarded with multiple conflicting directions on what you should be practicing and how often you should be practicing. And I want to solidify one consistency that you absolutely need, a requirement really, if you're gonna play this art game, if you're gonna be an artist for a living, or if you're even gonna stick with it and just get good at it. And that's gonna require that you find joy in making art. It needs to be joyful, man. Now, there are going to come times when every artist is going to go through a rut. You're going to go through those periods of time when it's like, ah, man, I'm stuck on this painting. It's taking me way too long to do. You know, you're going to run through periods of time when you've got deadlines and you're just stressed out, or your workload is massive. I like to use lists that help me to break down massive projects into like itty bitty manageable lists of like little tasks that I can check mark and feel that I'm making progress, quantifiable progress. But even that can feel overwhelming. You got a list of 200 things. My team and I were making an indie game. That's what you're watching me work on right now. I got to paint 200 portraits on top of writing a story and doing all the art for all the environments, designing all these towns, etc., etc., etc. It's a mountain of work. It can feel overwhelming, and you can easily get lost in just going, well, I just got to get that done, got to get that done, got to get that done. And then it loses the joy, the most essential ingredient. And how do you get that joy back? I still suggest that you do a list, because for your own sanity, it feels really good to check off a small item on a list of things that equate to, when you're done, a massive project, you know, such as a video game, such as like what Twilight Monk is. It's a 3-year development cycle on this thing. It can be overwhelming at times. And sometimes whatever you're working on, if you're working on a comic, you're in the midst of it. And it feels like, oh my God, is there an end in sight? And like you're excited about the next thing. But it's so important that you finish the current project that you're on. And the key to doing so is to find the joy in the smallest thing, no matter what it is. That inner dialogue that you're going to have is going to dictate whether or not you're having a good time doing it, or whether you're stressed out and feeling overwhelmed. And everything about this is a psychological game. Everything about it is psychology. You're going to go through periods of time where your YouTube channel is going to suffer a little bit because you don't have as much time to draw. I'm telling my own story here. You're going to go through ebbs. You're going to go through flows. You're going to go through periods of time when it seems like nothing you do is going to affect your success of your channel or your popularity of your art on social media or whatever. And then you're going to go through other periods of time when you're going to be getting all kinds of crazy ass traffic. You're not even going to know exactly why. These things are going to happen. It's the ebb and flow of being an artist, of being in a creative field. And it's going to be so important that you contextualize it properly in your mind so that you can be excited about sitting down to do more of it, even in those times when it's not going the way you were hoping. And so, like, how do you do that? How do you muster that enthusiasm when you're feeling burned out? You're feeling like you're not getting the results you want? Or you're just excited to move on to the next project because you know you've learned a bunch, and if you start it over, well, guess what? You could make the next thing better, right? Yeah, that's true, but you've got to finish what you started. And I think there are a few strategies that I want to talk about here. Number one is take that little breather if you need it. Take that rest. Go out and have a good time. Have a good time with friends. Remember that life is good. Remember that life is freaking good. It's the greatest time in history to be alive. That leads me to another aspect of this perspective. Remember how lucky you got it. There are people out there that have a way harder time doing their job than what you get to do for your job. If you got art as a job, if you're making any money at all doing it, then good God, how lucky are you, right? Let me go one step even further. If you have time to draw, even if you're not getting paid for it, if you even have time to make art, okay, then you are so lucky. Think about throughout history. Think about throughout human history. Think about those generations of people who they couldn't even fathom the concept of having art as a pastime, let alone a job. It was not that long ago that people basically woke up when the sun came up, they'd get out there and plow the fields, and they had to shovel crap. Life was hard throughout most of human history, man. And you get to sit down and do artwork. They didn't even have time for that. Pre-electricity, they had to stop what they were doing when the sun went down because there was no light. Sure, you could paint or draw by candlelight, yeah. But most of the time, people are getting ready for the thing they've got to do the next day, or they're preparing meals, or they're preparing other things necessary for survival. How spoiled are we in our modern times that we can just sit around and draw? It's a friggin' luxury, and we should be grateful that we can even do that. If you're paid to do it, and even if you're not making a lot of money, hey, count yourself lucky. That is a blessing. And sometimes it's so easy to allow ourselves to become dissatisfied and feed that. We can feed that perspective, and then we become more dissatisfied. Then we go, well, what's the point anyway? Because it's not going to make me happy. It's so easy to fall into that trap. And this is entirely self-imposed, by the way. We know this. It's so easy to switch our mind to look at what other people are doing and go, oh, well, this other person has it so easy, or this other person makes way more money than me, or they get way more views or traffic. All this stuff is nonsense. It's silly. And it's really a distraction, and it's not helping your inner dialogue. It's not helping your perspective for you to become the most productive and joyful and a grateful and appreciative person that you can be today in order to make the best work that you can do. Because that is an essential ingredient to making good art. Another thing I'm going to suggest is that you find something that's super inspiring to you. So recently I got hooked on a manga called One Piece. Maybe most people have never heard of this book, but I'm looking through these pages, and the way that the artist draws these expressions on characters, the way that stories unfold, and the way that characters interact with the world around them, and the kind of stories that are involved in this book give me such a feeling of exuberance and excitement for creativity. I want to draw, basically. So find that thing, whatever it is for you. It might be a video game, it might be a comic, it might be another artist that you love to see draw on Instagram or YouTube, whoever that might be. Whatever it is, find that exuberance, find that thing that makes you just you can't not draw. You can't not create something when you're looking at that thing, and surround yourself with it, embrace it, emulate it, dissect it, explore it, and add it into your repertoire. There's so many times in my life when I was inspired by something and I let other people kind of talk me out of it. Like, oh, you shouldn't be doing things that are that expressive. And I'll give you a perfect example, and you might even agree with them. If you're working on a dark fantasy game, you probably shouldn't be taking too much inspiration from manga or super stylized cartoony Disney stuff, okay? But just because that's your job, just because you have to finish the thing that you started in that more dark fantasy style, doesn't mean that you can't express in your sketchbook or when you go home at night, when you're working on your own personal things. Just be free. Give yourself that room, that freedom, that complete openness, that blue sky mentality to explore things that you hadn't ever tried before because you're freaking excited to give them a shot. This is another reason why I always suggest that artists have their side project. You should always have like a sketchbook full of stuff you want to do next, the next thing. Because then once you finish the thing you're currently working on, you got some new fuel, some hype energy for this next thing, and it keeps you going. And always make time for these side things, because eventually when you do get around to starting on it, you're already going to have something started, and it's so much easier to just build on that. And this comes back to what I was talking about at the beginning of the video. There's so many other artists that will have their opinion about, oh, it should be done this way or it should be done that way. And yeah, you're doing a tutorial based on their style and their approach to things. So maybe they've found what works for them. That doesn't have to be for you too. I've certainly met artists who said there's only like one standard for what is great art. They would look at one artist and they would say that is the only standard for what is great art. And I've certainly allowed myself to fall into that trap as well, but it's not true. And that's what's so damn exciting about it. That's not something for you to be frustrated by or confused by. It's like, just accept it. Like, some people are going to love this kind of thing over here. Other people are going to love this other kind of thing over there. You can find something that you love for you and just explore that. And in fact, that's going to be the key that's going to like really make your work stand out, because you're not just following a trend of whatever the most popular thing is in a certain group. But the most important thing about all of this is that you find the joy in making the art. There's certainly like realistic looking games that I love to play, for example, but I don't want to work on them. I don't want to work on a Grand Theft Auto, but I love to play that game. You know what I mean? And what I'm trying to say is like, it's important for you to love what you're doing. It's important for you to love and embrace the stylization, the expressiveness of the characters, or even the grit if it's the opposite. You know, if you're going for photorealism and that's what brings you joy, pursue that. Don't try to pursue something that's going to make other people happy. Really, it has to come from 90% of like, or at least 80% of your own personal joy. Otherwise, don't do it. You'll just, if you make yourself miserable, you're just going to spread more and more misery. And yeah, certainly you need to be consistent for the sake of your audience, because if you change your brand, you know, then your audience is probably going to go away. They'll find somebody else to follow. But you need to enjoy the work that you're doing. And why is that important? Because if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to stick with it. Also, you're going to end up resenting the work itself. And I've certainly fallen into that trap recently, I would say. So yes, the very thing that I'm talking about in this video is something that I've been recently going through, and I'm rediscovering why I love doing it. Perhaps ultimately what I'm really trying to express in this video is gratitude. It's gratitude for the situation that I have. I'm so grateful for you as an audience, as people who tune in to my channel. I'm grateful that I get to make art for a living. I'm grateful that I get to make video games. I can't wait for people to play this. It's going to be so awesome. I hope that I can bring you some encouragement, some joy, and also unlock some opportunities and possibilities for you in your art journey as well. And I want to also thank you for tuning in every week, even though it's been a little slower. There was a time years ago I was doing 3 videos a week. Now I'm only really doing like 1 video a week, and people still show up. I'm so grateful for you guys. I tried out the membership thing just to see what would happen, and I'm so grateful to people who decided they wanted to check out my vlogs and my more personal takes on video games and comics and stuff that I'm reading and whatnot. You guys are aces. I'm here for you guys. I don't need to be doing YouTube. I do it because I like the sense of community. I like interacting with you guys. So please do leave me some questions in the comments below. If there's anything you'd like to know about being a pro artist or getting a job as an artist, I'd love to help you out. So please drop that in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. And I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, ciao.